All right. Hey, Ian. Hey, Graham. Thank you, guys. Thank you for making yourself available. Here we are. A month has flown by since we last spoke, and I'm going to have all the links in the description below. You're both on my new channel, Crypto Rich Politics, just for politics. Graham, you are a common law lawyer, an absolute genius of a man, an expert in England's constitutional law. And Ian, you are a historian and an excellent writer, and you have expertise in English constitutional law. And I think we're all on the same page, which is we want a world where people are sovereign and free. Okay, Graham, take it away.
Well, so just to make sure everyone's aware of this, we had the election petition in Chester where I was prosecuting the returning officer and Sarah Pouchin MP. It was in Chester Crown Court for 3 days, 2 High Court judges in front of me. A beautiful court, by the way, a really old court. The gallery was packed, and I was asked a question when I was given evidence about the Fabian Society, and Sarah Pouchin's barrister said to me, "Mr. Moore, that is nothing more than a conspiracy theory." So that was it. I launched into my answer, and my answer was, so 141 Fabians have been elected to Parliament, that in effect the whole of the cabinet is, and let me just turn this buzzing off in the background, mute the tab, so hopefully you can still hear me.
Yes.
So I explained to the 2 judges and to the gallery and to the court that the Fabian Society, the last time a whole cabinet, as in today, was Fabian or Marxist, we went to war with Iraq on a lie, right? Then I started to explain the fact that they're actually bragging about there being a Fabian cabinet again. Sadiq Khan is a Fabian, he's a mayor of London. That Keir Starmer is a Fabian, an executive member, so is Sadiq Khan. And I went through all of these people. I said, so if you're saying it is a conspiracy theory, you need to think again, because they are actually bragging about this. And as I went through it all, by the time I stopped, the court fell silent, and the public gallery and one of the ushers stood up and started clapping, right? And I was like, oh my God, don't do that, because it'll annoy the judges. So one of the judges looked at the gallery and said, like, put his hand up, and then said to me, "Mr. Moore, this isn't the place to be on your soapbox." And then the other judge stepped in and said, "Well, we understand the passion, right? Because this is about communism and Marxism, and what you're accusing these people of are being Marxist." I said exactly that at the count. So we actually lost the petition trial in terms of the judges were not interested in it. They wasn't interested in the systemic count fraud throughout what is described by the media as the red wall, which there is no such thing, it's just cheating. But in the lead up to the trial, I won the directions hearing in the divisional court. I won 3-0, so 3 appellant judges in the second highest court in the country come down on my side and said this trial continues, right? And all of the constitutional provisions I put forward, they completely accepted that we had the right for an election petition to put out in front of 2 judges the fact that there was systemic fraud. So we won all of that, and the appellant court basically said the other side has lost, so therefore you can claim costs against them. Because of the rules of 1975, they have to pay me 2/3. So it works out in total about 42 grand. And they are arguing in the background because they do not want to give me 42 grand, right? But they do have to do that. And they're trying to bankrupt me for the other side, which is the election petition of 70 grand, which is what they're claiming. But the whole thing is a shenanigans, because they're not allowed to claim 70 grand because they've already lost their legal arguments previously, and that was the bulk of the cost. So that's the situation so far. But getting back to, if you want to talk about jury trials, etc.
Well, how different would it have been if this has been presented before a jury.
That's exactly what people are saying. That's exactly what people are saying. The fact that this went to 2 state judges as a tribunal and not in front of a jury, I can tell you now, we've put out on a number of occasions to the people that listened to that trial, would you have gone for a full individual ballot recount? And everyone to a man has said yes, right? So it shows the difference between a tribunal, which is 2 judges that are paid by the state, even though the state has got no money, it's our money, right?
Yeah.
Those judges are doing exactly, and by the way, the appellant court was actually brought in as an abusive process because they needed the 2 original judges who were already on our side, right? From the election, there was a rota system, and the rota system ended mid-October. So they had to find a way. That's why they got an appellant hearing, an appeal hearing, within a week, right? Which doesn't happen, but it did. And that delayed the trial because originally the trial was for October the 2nd, 3rd and 4th of October. Because of the appeal being on October the 16th, we then got a swap out of judges. And as the swap out of judges come, we've got these 2 other election petition judges that weren't on our side. And that's the way the corruption of the state operates. But you're right in what you're saying.
That is the risk. Thank you, Graham. I want to bring EM in because that is the risk of foregoing jury trials. And my understanding, EM, is that in the, because as you probably know this, but you will know this better than me, I'm sure. But in the, as an American, in the American Constitution, jury trials are enshrined.
Yes.
And it's like pretty standard practice that pretty much everything goes to jury trial.
But that comes straight out of English common law. That goes all the way back to the dooms of Alfred in the 800s. Right? We just formally codified a constitution because all of the, I will honor your editor's choice here. I won't use a certain word, okay? But I had to catch myself there. The reasons in which the founding fathers of the United States, the founders of the country, codified the American Constitution, which is 99% the English Constitution and English Bill of Rights and directly out of English everything, is because of all of the in-between sliding manipulations that have been used to not adhere to English common law and not adhere to English constitutionality, the English Bill of Rights, the Act of Settlement, all of these things that had developed over 1,000 years in England, because they hadn't been codified specifically, because guess what, we're living civilizational peoples. That's why it was all hard codified in the Constitution. Now, where are we now in America? Well, now we're having the same problems that England's had, is that even though we codified this extraordinary thing, we still have gaps in it. It's impossible not to. And the resentfuls, as I write about in the Eternal War, are always finding the gaps. Mm-hmm. That's all they do every minute of the day. And then they find ways, if they gain a foothold through there, like the beaches in Normandy, then they want to expand off the beach and take more of the land. So yes, jury by trial is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution, but it comes directly out of English common law. It comes out of English judiciary practice that's over 1,000 years old. It's been codified in all kinds of pieces in the English system as well.
Yeah, thank you.
But whether a thing's coded or not, it's about how a thing is enforced, and that's the problem we all have.
And also how it is through deception and sleight of hand and the withholding of information, people are denied their rights. And Graham, you have posted a video on Rumble about how I think a certain portion of the Bill of Rights was excised.
Yep.
People don't know about it. I haven't listened to that video yet, and I do recommend people go check out Graham Moore's Rumble channel. And I'll link to that in the description below. Do you want to just say what that is? And then also, there's something else which Weston A. Price, London, posted out, and credit to them because...
My Italian mate.
Italian or not, right? But credit to them because the jury trial is actually older than the Magna Carta. Do you want to just address those 2 points, please, Graham?
Well, so before I do that, I just want to make sure people understand this. The Anglo-Saxon, so just to remember...
Graham, sorry, hold on a second. I'm just going to go off screen. I can hear you. I just got to get my notebook. Please carry on. The
Well,
Anglo-Saxon.
so the Anglo-Saxons had a great system. They developed it after the Romans left. The Angles and the Saxons were Germanic tribes. They come in from Germany and they created really what we know today as the common law. And it was a community-based law.
Yeah.
People must understand that the jury system, so there were lots of things that were going on prior to 1215, which was the Magna Carta. Prior to that, you had the Charter of Rights. I think that was 1190, maybe 1100. But the whole point is someone always tried to go against it, right? And it was 9 out of 10 times, it was the judges that they used to get to the judges and the judges become corrupt. King Alfred hanged 44 judges, right? The reason he did was because they perjured their oath, not just to England and to the crown, but to God. It was a solemn oath, right? And because they had, in the execution of their judgment, been corrupt, and because of them 44 judges, they had killed 44 Englishmen. So King Alfred said, an eye for an eye. You in your judgment have killed 44 Englishmen. So what we're going to do is hang you, just to make sure that all these judges know there is a consequence for you going crooked, right? The problem we've got is people don't understand that is still the law, right? And I think they're going to find that out in America before they find it out here next, right? Because I believe the Americans are going to bring in, as they've done on many occasions, English common law and the history of England, and will say to the crooked judges out there, you have perjured your oath, and the offence for perjuring your oath, if you cause in your judgment the death of an American, is that we hang you, right? And I think you're going to see that happen. So getting back to...
Just give me a reference to that, please. Where is that from? Because otherwise, how do I know you're not just making it up? Which I don't think you are, by the way.
What the answer to that is, if you go, you have to go to the archives. Do not try and pull this up anywhere else. So not from. You can actually read and then get it translated from Latin what was said and what the judgments were. But it was King Alfred that killed the 44 judges. There's a whole book that was written on it hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and if you go and read that book, you'll find out exactly what they did. Right, and I can't remember off the top of your head what the book was.
There's an extraordinary effort right now to declare that book, invalid, that it was fake and wrong. None of which refutation, though, is exactly as you said, gone and looked at the actual archives of the actual rulings, etc.
Yeah,
etc.
You can actually read the rulings.
Yeah,
and when you read the archive, don't forget England is technically 1100 years old. We're one of the only countries in the world that have written legal authorities going back that far, and you can actually read what they said at the time. So that's why you need to get it from the archives.
What's the name of the book? Can either of you remember?
Well, I haven't got it in front of me.
I referenced it somewhere, or somebody who was refuting something I said referenced it here recently.
Well, if somebody who's watching this could put the name of the book in the comments.
Yeah,
appreciate it. At me in the comments, and then I'm sure.
It was like 500 years ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so
it was quite some time ago.
It's an old book.
Yeah.
So the basis of the juries. So there's another book that you can read, and that book is called Jury Trials by Lord Devlin, Hamlin Trust Lectures. I can't remember what year that one was, but the first lecture was Lord Denning, Freedom Under the Law. People must remember that there is a whole series of books and lectures where lay people can learn the law from the best of the best of the best of English judges who are giving those lectures. They're not lying to you, they're telling you the truth, and they're telling you exactly what the law is, and as the law is, all the way through history. So Lord Devlin come out with a book from the Hamlin Lectures, and it was called Jury Trials. It's fascinating because it tells you the whole history of juries from Lord Devlin, who was an expert, right? So people describe me as a constitutional expert. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a common law expert either, because you can't, to be an expert, it means you must recite or be able to, from your own brain, pick up 1100 years of law, right? Well, I can pick up much of the law, but no one can remember it all. There's too much of it. And that's why judges are often in dispute with each other, because one will say, well, actually, I thought it meant this, and another one will say, I think it means this. And even expert lawyers who become judges disagree with each other, right? So it's really important to understand, the more you read it yourself, the more you will get an indication in your own mind and form your own opinions of what they're doing. So juries, for example, and I will go back to them guys who give the history of juries on Twitter. They did predate the Magna Carta. There was various other versions of juries. And you had something called oath takers. Well, the oath takers was a form of jury. So let's say I commit an offence, or someone has accused me of committing an offence. The people in this community who know me well say, Graham wouldn't do that, right? We absolutely know he is not of that character and wouldn't do it. They then come along to a court and swear an oath as an oath taker on my character to say he would not do this, right? And the judge would then accept the oath takers to say, well, you all know him in the community, so therefore we believe this is not what happened, right? And so it wasn't a type of jury you think now. But in 1215, or just before 1215, they had something called guilt or by ordeal. And what they used to do, and it's all in that book, by the way, if they believe you committed a crime and you went to the next stage, they'd get a boiling vat of oil, stick your hand in it if you was a thief, pull your hand back out, and if you got an infection and died, you was guilty. If you survived, although you would be maimed, you was not guilty. So it was obvious we needed another way of deciding people's guilt, because that's a bit like a witching ponds, right? You know, to prove your guilt as a witch, you must drown. Well, it's not very nice for the witch, is it? Or the accused of the witch, or worse, to be burnt at the stake. And again, you know, they would say if you wasn't a witch, for example, you wouldn't die by the flame. There was lots of mad things. You think, but it's obvious, you know, to us, that just shows how, I don't know, how people took control and did things that they shouldn't really be doing. So the jury system, getting back to that, I just want to emphasise a couple of points here. In 1933, by the way, and in 1933 was when the Nazis come to power in Nazi Germany. In 1933, the British eliminated and abolished grand juries. Grand juries still exist in America. They have a perfectly good function, but the British have taken control of England and they had removed grand juries. Now, grand juries are not there to find someone's guilt. They are there to find probable cause before you set out to arrest them. So the jury of your peers has listened. That's why the defendant is often not there in a grand jury. You're only getting a prosecution case, and they say to the jury, do you believe that there lies probable cause for an indictment? And then you get something from the jury returned, which is a bill of indictment, which is a grand jury indictment that then is used as a warrant to arrest the person. Then they're arrested, then they're brought to court, and then they have the right to silence, the Fifth Amendment, right, which comes from England. The right to silence comes from England, the Fifth Amendment. Then they turn around and say there's due process, we go through these processes, and then they can have counsel, they defend themselves, or they're represented, and that's when the real argument starts. They could then go through the points that the prosecutors have brought up and say, you know, this is what happened there, that's what happened there, that's what happened there, and all of a sudden the jury are seeing the bigger picture because the person is now defending themselves and they can get found guilty. So to be indicted by a grand jury is not evidence of your guilt, right? It is only probable cause. Things could look bad until you start telling your story, right? So people must understand that. That was removed.
Why?
From English law. Well, it's a good question to say why. It was a way of the English holding power to account. So anyone could be indicted apart from the king. You could indict a judge, you could indict a member of parliament, you could indict a lord, you could indict anyone, right? And what they had to do was, because of the corruption, and we was using this grand jury system to good avail, and holding these people to account, they decided to abolish it. Why am I telling people this? Well, because there was two elements to the abolition. Once in 1933, which coincided with the Nazis rising to power, who, by the way, also abolished all juries in in Germany, right? So Germany and communists are the same people. They're both on the left, right? They're not on the right. The right is constitutionalism, and the farthest right you can go is what people are described as anarchists. But anarchy and anarchist isn't what people think. It means we have no rulers. Leave us alone. We govern ourselves, right? That's as far right as you can get. Constitutionalists are between the middle and anarchists. They're in the middle and they have a constitution. So getting back to the jury system, in 1948, they abolished the last remnants of the grand jury, right? The last remnants of the grand jury was abolished in 1948. What else was repealed? Parts of the English Bill of Rights was also repealed by stealth. They never told the people in 1948. And also, by the way, in 1857, it may have been 1857 is the year they took out another part of it. So two parts of the English Bill of Rights was unlawfully removed by stealth. They never told the people, right? They did it in such a way that it was buried in legislation. And what they did there was removed. Everyone says Parliament is sovereign. Parliament is not sovereign, right? The people are sovereign. And what the Glorious Revolution did was separated the power exactly the same as the United States of America, right? And said the people's representatives are in the Commons, and they lend their sovereignty to their representative to air the grievances of the people with the Crown in Parliament. The Crown in Parliament are ministers, right? So what they actually did, there's some background noise I've got there, but I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know whether I've got it on my laptop or one of yours.
It's yours, Graham. Because I'm getting. Yeah,
I can't work out where that's coming from. It's gone off now for some reason. Right. So the major point for everyone to understand this is they don't want the English Bill of Rights and the common law. The communists and the Nazis, so the communists and fascists, neither of them groups of people want anyone in the background. They want to remove it completely.
Yep. Graham, I think the noise might be from you, Ian. If you want to go on mute.
Yeah, that's it. It's coming from Ian's side.
It's your noisy cat in the background having a chat.
It sounds like someone talking in the background, or like there's a video running in the background.
Yep. Anyway.
So everyone must know that once they did that, and there's a great video that points out how they did it. But when you go up against judges, the judges will not listen to us. The first thing they do in a common law jurisdiction is interfere or infiltrate the judiciary. That's the most important part. That's what they did in Nazi Germany. That's what they did in the Soviet Union. And that's why our law books actually state that you must purge fascists and communists from the civil service. Right? Our law books actually state that. But again, they're targeting. So just to make sure I'm clear on this, America has a codified constitution, so does England. But ours is codified over a much more vast time period.
It's not in a single document.
Yeah, it's not in a single document. And the reason why it's called a common law constitution is because the judges can tweak it, right? So if something bad happens, they can tweak and make these little adjustments, whereas you're more restricted by having a fully codified constitution that America's got. There's an argument for both. I think whatever happens, a constitution is a constitution, and it sets limitations on Parliament, or it sets limitations on the powers, the force of the powers, and you must have these three elements that are separated. They've got that in America. We've got that here. We had that prior to the Constitutional Reform Act of 2005, and although we had lords, there were the law lords, and they would have told the lords, and they would have told the commons, you can't do that. It's unlawful, right? And again, just the way in which you create law, and there is a set way of creating law, all of that has virtually been nullified. We now live, England is now under communist rule. Parliament is a Politburo. The parliamentarians in many cases have been appointed, not elected. And the problem you've got in England is the people have not been told that. And the only person who's ever stood up in a court of law and actually said it is me. No one else has actually got to an election petition hearing and said there is systemic corruption in our election system. And it's not just postal votes. That's just part of it. So I try to say to people during the election trial, if you look at immigration and you look at the boats is a fraction of the problem we've got with the visa system, right? Well, if you then transpose that to elections, postal votes is a fraction of the problem you've got with the visa system. You're looking at the boats saying, oh, look, there's 50,000 have come across this year in boats. Yeah, they have. And that's really bad, right? But there's like 5, 10, 15,000 people a day coming in on aircraft.
Just on that, and I want to bring EM in, 900,000 total immigrants in the UK last year in 2024 from official statistics. And the illegal numbers were tiny. It's the legal numbers, and this is where in an economy that isn't expanding and resources aren't expanding, so then what it does, it impoverishes everybody.
Cloward pivot. It's the Cloward pivot strategy being played out directly. But Graham, I want to quibble a little bit of a point, but I think it's very important. England does not have is not a communist system. The United Kingdom is not. That's the mask. Yes, there are Fabians and there, etc. But what the United Kingdom has is an oligarchy. Plato talked about this. This has been talked about in the ancient, right?
Absolutely agree. In fact, it's actually called, I pulled out a book, 160 years old, which I've got here, it's currently in my car, right? Where it talks of a cabal running England. Yeah. An oligarch, a regime, whatever. But they use the word cabal in that book.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got a video.
Don't worry, I'm still here. Let me see if I can pop that.
Yeah. So an oligarchy is, strangely enough, far more dangerous than communism. Communism burns itself out. An oligarchy can go on for quite some time. Why are they flooding all these people in there? They're turning the United Kingdom, and they're trying to do it here in the United States, into a slum, into a ghetto where they get rents.
Yeah, no,
because most of the landowners, and not if they don't own the land directly, it's all foreigners, and if they don't, and a lot of them are the banks in in Europe, continental Europe, and oil kingdom monies, and a lot of if they don't own the lands directly or through cutout companies, they hold the mortgages, because all the mortgages were pooled into debt obligations and collateralized mortgage obligations, and they own that debt. So what are they doing in order to keep the English-speaking peoples and the European peoples from getting their stuff together and re-emerging as powers in the world? They're just flooding us and turning us into ghettos.
I don't disagree. I come from an area where they've absolutely done that. I think it was Elon Musk that done a video, and he explained it in the best possible way I've ever heard. He turned around and said, and this is the bit that made me laugh, he said the people in the shires of England are like hobbits.
Yeah.
Right, so if people remember the films and
at the end of the movie, at the end of the books, what did they have to do though? What did Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin have to do?
Yeah, well, again, Elon Musk basically turned around to the people in the shires of England and said, "You are like hobbits. You don't realise that there are bad people out there. You think everything's all lovely because you live in this lovely place. There's bad people that live in the world. They are flooding your country, and you think everything's okay. You need bad rough, hard men to stop you being overrun, and you're turning on them men that are actually, and he's talking about the military, he's talking about various people, and he's saying you need to understand that it's them people that have kept them people out of your villages.
So I wrote an article on this, an essay on this morning, a long-form essay on this very topic this morning, about cowardice and how cowardice masquerades as compassion and empathy that gets weaponized to destroy us by malevolent people. Exactly. I wrote two prose pieces this morning on the same topic, one a little bit more modern, and then the other one I spent the last 4 days working through it in the form of Lord Tennyson, but on the same topic about weaponized, empathy and compassion, which reality is cowardice. It's cowardice masquerading as empathy and compassion. And what is it, what is that cowardice about? Well, some of us are going to have to stand and fight and kill some people to free our lands. It's that simple. And it means that there's going to be bloodshed, there's going to be more terrorism, there's going to be more violence at home, but it has always been that way. And I want to go to something, and I personally believe that, yes, very much, Graham, what you articulated about Elon's statement, I think there was something far more direct and profound about Elon's statement. At the end of The Lord of the Rings, what happens? Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin have to go back and fight a war in the Shire with hobbits who had turned on their own and with men who had come in and, ruffians and criminals and, everything. It's exactly the same. It's almost like Tolkien was talking about today. And they had to go back with their martial capacities and skills and knowledge and everything that they learned, and they had to go mount a war in the Shire to free the Shire. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's really, I think, the deeper message that Elon was saying.
Yeah, no, I agree, which is one of the reasons why I'm now in Devon. And these people don't get it. Like, they just do not get how bad it is, especially London. And, I mean, most of Yorkshire is now lost. All right? I'm not saying you can't get it back, but it is bad, and these people are not seeing it. They all want their really lovely lifestyles, but
they're cowards.
It's not going to happen.
Let me just.
They're just cowards.
If I can just.
Terribly sorry.
About London.
How does cowardice masquerade itself? It masquerades itself as tolerance.
Yeah.
And ignorance, intentional ignorance. Terribly sorry, Mitch.
Sure, thank you, Ian. So we moved out of London 21 years ago, and I have gone back recently to working in London for the first time after 10 years. And, occasionally I go and visit, and I notice the decay. Like the station, I'm working where I worked 10 years ago, and what I notice now, there are homeless people sleeping outside this station. That wasn't happening 10 years ago. The streets are dirtier. I notice how there are a much, much larger range of different groups of people. So, I came as part of the post-war immigration from the Commonwealth that came in the 60s and 70s. I was part of that. So the Pakistanis, Indians, people from the Caribbean, a small amount from Nigeria. And now what I notice, there's a greater diversity of peoples, like just incredible. And they're not from Commonwealth nations. And there's way more languages being spoken in schools by different groups. And then the resources haven't increased in any way because we don't have a growing economy. These people don't have jobs.
It's not the intent.
I understand. I mean, I think you said it perfectly, Ian, when they're reducing. Starmer is acting on behalf of his rulers and reducing this country to slums, to a ghetto.
Yes. To rent. It's just rents. Exactly. And government's rents. It's just rents. And also, if you look at a lot of these judges, it's there and here as well. If you look at a lot of these civil servants and politicians who are involved in all of these things, a lot of them are landowners. Yeah. Rental property owners. It's like a ludicrously disproportionate number of them are themselves slumlords. I wrote another piece here a couple of weeks ago that we're all slaves to slumlords. The real underlying reality is that we, the English-speaking people particularly, and I mean all of us, all across the English-speaking world, but primarily, just call it like it is, in the white parts of it, we are being reduced down to slums so that we don't ever pose a threat to the rest of the world again, so that we don't ever find ourselves and stand Because we can turn around the demographic decline. We can hold the borders we have. We held these borders and created them with populations 1/5 the size of what we have now. We built economies. We did all of these things in the world with vastly smaller populations. We don't need all of these damn people. And we sure as hell can't make the argument we need them for industry, because we're not actually rebuilding industry either. And what little industry we're building is automated primarily.
It's analogous to the slow, the extinction of Native American peoples using
that's
as a weapon.
exactly the intent, just with less poison blankets and whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm joking on that part because most of that is exaggeration, hyperbole, anyways. Yeah, I mean, it's the way that the thing that they are counting on is two things. One, that we will continue to adhere to the law and the law only, which they know how and have corrupted for a century plus. And in in England, they've corrupted since the 1600s. They're working it out here. Now we're fighting it back in the courts, and very much what Graham said earlier, the constitutionality is being restored here. Now judges are just coming out straight up unconstitutional, just basically doing a fatwa from the bench. Some of these judges aren't even American born. They're foreign born judges. So that's something that's got to be dealt with, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Foreign-born judges or parents. So the Access Settlement was clear, which again was repealed. This element of it was repealed in 1948. 3 years after we allegedly won the Second World War. We didn't win the Second World War. The communists won the Second World War. The Soviet Union then started to infiltrate and put the people in place. But in 1948, they removed the section of the Access Settlement of 1701, which forbids anyone in a position of power, or an MP, authority, lord, judge, police constable, who is not born of English parents.
Sheriff.
They cannot be in them positions. So when you understand what they've done by stealth, getting back to your point there, which I think is really important, these people have taken out the protections, the constitutional protections, and now people are starting to see, because it's a very slow thing. That's what Fabianism is. It's very slow. You don't realise it's happening until they put all the pieces in place, and all of a sudden they go bang, and people see what's happening.
How estrogen works. It's how estrogen logic works. Estrogenic logic. Slow, steady, insidious, warping reality to where you get to a point some years down the road and you don't even know who the hell you are anymore.
So let me, Graham, before you go on, I just want to make a slight interjection there, right? Because I want to add something to the mix, which is I want to let people know about notaxforwar.com. Now, this is not the whole solution, but it is part of the way that one of the ways that we can protest against the authoritarianism of this government that are using our tax money to build a digital prison and impoverish us all. So go to notaxforwar.com and find out how you can legally, lawfully, peacefully withhold any and all taxes, fines, fees, and levies to local and central government in the UK. Thank you.
Can I just make a quick point? I did a seminar in Epping last Sunday, and I was cancelled at the last minute. Right? They cancelled the hall. We had to find another hall because they didn't want us speaking about England. Right? But we found another location, and we did the seminar. It's all online. But after, we went for a meal in a Turkish restaurant. The reason why this is important is people should understand this. So we've ordered our food, and we're having a laugh. There was 4 of us, and a young waiter come up, and he was talking to us. And we said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "It's a Turkish restaurant." He said, "Iran." So I said, "What, you're real? You're really an Iranian?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm Persian, Iranian, yeah." So we said, I then started to question him. I said, "I want you to tell us the truth, right? You're not, there's no one, we're not recording you say," and he went, no. What do you want to know? I said, who's caused the problem in Iran? Are the Iranian people being oppressed and suppressed? He said, 100% they are oppressed and suppressed by 5% of a ruling class. 95% of us don't want what we've got, right? And I said, "Who was it? Who did that?" And he said, "The British."
Yes.
And I said, "Now tell me, how it happened and what happened. And he went, and in the end, he stood there, bearing in mind this is a busy restaurant, and he's talking to four of us. He turned out it was the boss's son. So he put everything to one side and he gave us a whole education on what was going. We talked about the Shah of Iran, right? The real Shah of Iran and what happened. Don't forget this guy is only 29 years old. And one of our groups said, we was talking about the difference between British and English. And he said, I am what they would regard and we would regard as an Iranian Kurdish, right? He said, but I'm Iranian, I am a Persian. That is my history, right? Yeah. He was massively articulate, really great person. But this is one of the things that he said. He said that the guy that's now running the show in Iran was educated by the British. He came from Britain. All of these people are put in place from Britain. He said the main orchestrator of all of the aggravation you've got at the moment from the 5% ruling class is British, right? Yeah. He said Mossad's involved. He said the others. But the important bit of this was that we said to him, a bit like my dad, is 95 and tells me things that I'll go, wow, Dad, where'd you get that from? And he tells me things to research, right? He's lived it. He says, you need to go and see this, you need to go and see that, and you need to understand this happened in 1940. And I start to research things and I think, wow, where did that come from? This guy, who's 29-year-old Iranian, is still getting information and still being educated by his grandfather, who is 105 years old, right? And we all went, wow. And he was telling us the truth. So I said, you've got no fear in saying it. He said, no. I said, now do you understand? There is a difference between the British and the English. We're all English. We don't want what we've got. And he said, I completely understand. We, as a people, the Iranians and the English, are as one. We just want to be left alone. But these ruling classes are destroying us, and especially the British. I said exactly that. And they're trying to eliminate us as the English as they go forward. And he completely got it.
So I did some research earlier today before this conversation, right? There is one solution and one solution only. Now you have to do all the legal stuff too, but you'll never win that because they own that space.
Yeah.
Straight up, right? You can never keep up with what they're doing. And it just takes one judge making some decision somewhere that's completely unconstitutional or illegal, and it changes everything. And you would win if you fought for 40 years on that one point. Meanwhile, everything's continued to go and be corrupted, etc. Every 400 years, the English-speaking people have to go to a knockdown, drag-out, bloody fight.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because it's the only way to reset. Now, here's the one thing that England has that has kept England, and the English-speaking people, all the way since Alfred, and really since the organization into Wessex and Northumbria and all these other things in the 400s. You know, in the 100 some odd years into the 500s, 600s, when all that kind of shook out, right? The King of England still has prerogatives.
Oh, okay.
And if the people marched on the crown and held the crown accountable, the crown itself, knowing that it has the people's back, unlike, the people know that the crown's there for the people, and the crown knows the people are there for the crown, unlike the 1600s when we allowed a king to be beheaded, who was the last king to stand up to all of this. If the English peoples were to march on the crown and sustain that march, and thereby force the system to recognize that the people understand where the real power is. It's not the crown, it's the relationship between the crown and the people. The crown can dismiss the ministers.
Yeah, 100%.
The ministers are the ones that determine through council the judges. The judges serve at the crown's behest. The crown can dismiss judges.
Correct.
Now, there's going to be legal fights and other things, but the crown can dismiss and the powers that the parliament has taken to itself to control the judiciary, the crown can disband parliament and call for elections.
Correct.
Right? Now, here's the piece that the crown doesn't have, and this has been intentionally carefully done, including the complete dismantlement of the British military, the English military, Navy, etc. This has been done on purpose. Why? Because the English military, the British military, answers directly to the crown. They do not swear an oath to parliament. They swear an oath to the crown. Period. It is the only entity organization of any sufficiency or power in the UK system that swears direct fealty and oath to the crown. It's why it's been decimated, and it's why career officers have been put in positions of power, etc. But here's the point. That can all turn around rather quick. Now there's one other piece. The other piece is that the only way that the crown really has power is actually two pieces. It's the people and it's the nobility. You have to have a strong, capable body of lords who will go do unspeakable things in the different dukedoms and earldoms and baronies and everything else in the country to make sure that if and when things go to some kind of a bloodbath, that the English, sustain and preserve. His Majesty he still can. I know there's been acts, and Blair tried to do away with this, and et cetera, and did by threatening Her Majesty and others. But His Majesty can do letters of patent. His Majesty can elevate people to the peerage. They can knight people, and there are all kinds of very capable war-fighting, experienced people from all across the Commonwealth and the English-speaking world that would flood there to do this. This is the only way I see it, or the United Kingdom is lost. The people must march on the crown peacefully, and they must maintain that march on the crown, even if it's a year or 2 years, and they need to do it in great numbers. And thereby demonstrate to the crown that unlike 1649, when His Majesty King Charles I was beheaded, that this time we will stand with the crown, because we realize we've tried all these other things of power, and we have been totally enslaved and now are totally being replaced in our own country. We've tried all the self-rule stuff, every single bit, for several centuries. It's not worked. Now, does that mean we script the whole system? No, because the problem is 1/3 of the system has been sidelined since 1688. Well, early 1700s, and that's the crown, right? And that direct, and all of this is legal. It's all in the codes. It's all right there. And, Blair did a lot of damage, but some of that stuff has been reversed since, right? 2005, 2011, 2019, there was different things that were done that reversed some of the damage that Blair had done. Blair is the leader of, the Fabians, and really, we need to stop calling them Fabians because that's what they are. But really what they are is they're Brussels. That's really what they are. They're the continental Euros, right?
Okay. Ian, thank you so much for that. Thank you. And I do get it, because for people who don't know, given that most of my audience are in the US, and please share these videos to your British friends, your English.
Yes.
So
English all across the Commonwealth.
Through the English. Through the world of English peoples, right? And we're using the broadest sense possible to include the Commonwealth nations.
Correct.
All those that are inheritors and shaped by common law legacy.
Well, some of which are still in the Commonwealth and still subject to the crown, right? In one or more fashions. So terribly sorry.
Canada and Australia.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So the coronation oath, which King Charles has sworn to, he's sworn to protect the rights of the people.
The people.
Right.
And he's got to abide by that. Somehow I think it's unlikely, but then there's his successor.
So just to make sure people are clear with this, what the Glorious Revolution resolved was that you didn't have to write a letter to resign and abdicate. You could abdicate by deed. King Charles III has already abdicated, right? And people don't realise he has gone so far off-piste that he has perjured his oath. He has no right to be there anymore. Now, whether King William, his son, would be I don't believe he would be a better king. So I
disagree.
I've got no issues. I would prefer to be a republic, but to be a republic, you would still keep. So the common law can give you a republic, or it can give you a monarchy, right? So we live in a constitutional monarchy, or you can have a constitutional republic. There is no such thing as a constitutional democracy. That is absolutely BS, right? Yeah. That does not exist, and if it does exist, it is a communist form of governance that you do not want. Right. Yeah. So you can swap out and you can turn around and say, listen, you cannot be the king, the royal family is now gone because you have betrayed the people. So you would do the same thing as what happened with George Washington, right? They actually said to George Washington, we're going to make you the king. He went, No. Right? We have fought for independence. I will be your president if you insist, but it is it's term limited. You cannot have one whole thing.
And I will only serve 2 terms. Yeah.
And they carried it on in that way. So what people really must understand is all of the prerogatives which EM mentioned earlier were then transferred to the presidency, and they could wield the power on behalf of the people.
As executive for the people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is what the crown is. So the way, so if I might, there is no way to go from constitutional monarchy to republic in the United Kingdom without a total and absolute collapse and a total and absolute bloodbath. There's no way. Now, what there is now back to His Majesty's King Charles and to His Royal Highness Prince William. They have had knives at their throats. Family members have been killed. Family members are threatened all the time. They've been taken on humiliation rituals by the people who've owned the crown for over 300 years. It isn't the Windsors. It wasn't the Hanoverians before. It's the Dutch, Venetian, Romans, etc.
Okay.
They have owned and controlled this whole time. If I may, 1 second, if the people march on the crown and they hold that march and they demand that the crown honor their oath and that execute the executive's prerogatives on behalf of the people, and more importantly, this is it, Praetorians they don't control through total absolute power. Praetorians control through assassinations, poisoning, knives in the dark, kidnappings, extortion, all of that. If the people rise in numbers and march on the crown and do 2 things, they insulate the crown so that the crown can, be safe and secure from those things. Or if it happens, the people just go to tear down the government and the Praetorians, etc. Then the crown can prove how valuable and how capable it is. And I suspect, given the conversations His Majesty had when he went around the dominions just prior to his coronation, if you listen to what he was saying, he was basically saying that if you will rally to the crown, if you can protect us, we will exercise our oath. Now, it's ludicrous to think that they are just going to, allow themselves to be assassinated, or they're just going to pick up and quit and leave and then leave their people. I've traveled with some of the family members close in. They care about the English peoples immensely.
That makes sense.
So terribly sorry.
No, Ian, not at all. There's nothing to apologize. I mean, this whole conversation is riveting, absolutely riveting. So thank you both for what you provide, to myself and the viewers here. And if you like what they're saying, give us a thumbs up. I got to do more of these things to grow the channel. But hold on, Graham. I can completely get how they would love England, love history, love their legacy, love the tradition, because they've been brought up to do that in that sort of environ or that environment, right?
Yeah.
Now, you said that they're being held captive.
Yes.
I can get that it's entirely possible because people do nasty, shitty things to each other, and it's happened historically. But is this speculation on your part, or do you have? You may not have rock solid evidence like you've witnessed it, and here's a video I took, right, with a timestamp. But these are the red flags that point to it.
Wasn't King George VIII euthanized? It's now become public knowledge. What happened to Lady Diana really happened to Lady Diana.
Well, she was murdered.
What's happened to numerous other family members, princes, even crown princes, going all the way back to Victoria? Was Victoria depressed and hid away because of the death of Albert? Or was she depressed and hid away because she realized that she had no real power and she was a figurehead? And anytime she actually tried to do something for her people, one of her grandkids would die somewhere in the world.
I don't disagree with any of it. You're never going to know until we can get to the actual records. You're never going to know.
Correct.
Exactly
until we can insulate the family and the family can start telling its stories. And very much, Graham, if I might, to your father, right, and that Persian fellow's, elder grandfather. Until you can go to the crown and hold the crown, and the crown can point you to where to go look, you're not going to get the obvious answers, the obvious information. And oh, by the way, 90+% of the people who do the killing and the assassinations get killed themselves. This is how power is done. I wrote extensively on the Praetorian problem, the mob state problem. People have got to study history more closely
Yeah, very much so, and legal history, and you'll find
and
out.
Legal history, yeah.
You'll find out exactly what's gone on. But let me go back to a couple of points that Ian had just said, because this is really important. One of the things that the Royals and Parliament did was remove militias from England. Militias were crucially important because it is the people and the community arming themselves to resist tyranny. That's still law in this
country. come to the crown. Right? To come to the defense of the crown. Yes, terribly sorry.
It is a militia is there to defend the people from tyranny. So one of the things that's being promoted by the media in England, right, even if it's negatively, they're promoting something called a civil war. Who needs a civil war? They do. The cabal needs a civil war. We, the people, don't want that, because we can deal with this our own way. And the reason they need a civil war is because it's the only way they can rewrite the Constitution of England is via a civil war. In 1937, they did the same thing with the Republic of Ireland. They rewrote the Constitution. It was the Fabian Society that rewrote that. Now look at the state of Southern Ireland, right? So once people understand they need the civil war, we don't want it.
You don't need it.
We don't need it.
Yes.
They are promoting that in the background, and everyone keeps blaming the Jews. This part of it has got nothing to do with the Jews, but it has got something to do with the Jesuits.
They're also doing. Because what is this fight really about? This fight is really about Rome repossessing its former colony, and that's really what happened in 1688. Is Rome through Venice, through Amsterdam, reoccupied the British Isles, and over time, by the 1700s, had taken over all of the British Isles, unlike it had been able to do prior. And then through there, the whole Commonwealth. This is a war with Rome.
No, I
exactly agree. Who it is.
It is a war with Rome, and the British Empire is an extension of the Roman Empire. And once people understand that, there is only two types of people in the Roman Empire that count, and that was the patricians, I think they was called, and the plebeians, right? The plebeians were basically a middle class, and anyone below that was a slave, and they weren't very nice to slaves.
Okay, let's pause a moment. What was the power in the Roman Empire for 300 years? It was Praetorians and the Praetorian Guard with the knives at the backs of magistrates, generals, senators, the entire imperial family and previous imperial family members going out, major merchants. They were all required to have Praetorian guards as their security. That meant every single one of them. And when we look at how many emperors were knifed in the back or in their sleep or right out in the open, we also don't look at 100 times that number of judges, senators, generals, and others that were also controlled. Well, if we take a look at the world today, particularly in the English-speaking world, even here in the United States, et cetera, the security assets and elements for all the high-ranking people, both in government and in the private sector, all come from a very small handful of entities, all of which, in both there in the United Kingdom and here, there go back to MI5 or MI6, and here go back to the CIA. Every single one of them. We have a Praetorian problem, and everything that is happening right now is, Graham, exactly what you said, the English-speaking peoples, and we're trying to do it here. That's why the Kelly and these others are trying to take us to civil war, et cetera. We're doing the same thing here. The thing about the English civilization is we have these extraordinary capacities to error correct even major problems with this tripartite balance of power. Give me a second. The fundamental thing that they have to, the thing that allows them to take us to civil war is they keep the crown and the people apart. In the United States, they keep the administration and the people apart. And they invest immense amounts of wealth and effort and money and everything to make that happen. Because here in the United States, if we come around the executive, and there in the United Kingdom and across the Commonwealth, if the people come to the executive and let them know, we understand, we see the Praetorian problem, we got your back, and we will rip the Praetorians limb from limb if they harm you or your family, then we have all kinds of mechanisms short of nonstop, outright, unmitigated bloodshed. But short of that, if we don't cross this psyop divide that keeps the people in the crown. I'm just going to use the crown because we all come from that, right? All this English-speaking peoples.
So when you talk of I prefer to call it the executive.
Well, it's fine.
The only difference between the American executive and the English executive is one wears a crown and it is part of the Commonwealth. If you look at the inside of the crown, it's got stamped in it from Oliver Cromwell. It was remade and it said property of the Commonwealth.
Yeah,
right? And it's still got that inside the crown. So people need to understand. I'm not saying that Cromwell was an absolute angel, but he was a military general. What do you expect? Right.
Well, but he also then turned out to be a fairly good ruler when he realized what was really happening. If I can pause one moment, though, Graham, because this is important. Okay. And when I have conversations, we are at a place where we must, as a people, come together and throw off our oppressors that have been oppressing us for centuries. And it's very hard to motivate a people around an executive. We are deeply, deeply, as English-speaking peoples, resonating with the crown, with the king, with our history. Even if, we're constitutional peoples, etc. We've been a constitutional people since the 800s. There's never been an absolute monarch in the United Kingdom. What would become the United Kingdom or the Commonwealth. So the problem that we have, this is also why I wrote the book, This Our English Civilization, etc., is that it's not the crown that we're rallying to. What we're rallying to is our civilization that in its most distilled form, with the powers and rights and prerogatives still there, is the crown. And I talk to people even here, multiple age groups, even Americans. And when you talk in terms of the crown and rallying the banners, et cetera, they resonate. It resonates deeply with them. When you talk about rallying to the president or rallying to the executive, nobody gets, the guy's gone in 4 years or 3 years or 2 years, and who knows who's going to be replaced with, et cetera. It just doesn't have, and which is why they went to liberal democracies and all this other kind of stuff. You don't get that same kind of visceral, historic, ancestral, it's time to go. We're going to that guy, and we're going to hold him accountable, and we're going to rally to him.
So I don't disagree. So what you're actually describing there is a continuation. The continuation of a crown is actually a good thing because you get
the continuity. Yes,
you get the continuity. Whereas when you keep swapping out,
and it goes this way and then that way and this way,
it can go all sorts of ways. Yeah, no, right? So I do agree.
But you got to hold them accountable too, right? So this isn't just blind oath or anything.
Yeah, no,
right?
they need to know your accountability element. They need to know that they will be held accountable if they go against people.
Oh, we will remove them.
And this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen here.
Yes.
Right? And then
the people.
Yeah, then they will know. But again, it's not. I do agree. It's really difficult. The problem is when you've got the slow march through the institutions, and the monarchy is an institution. So the communists they've got to that, right?
But it's a captured institution that the people can free just by marching on it. We don't need violence. We don't need bloodshed. We don't need any of those things. The problem is that we've been raised to hate this man since the time he was born.
I don't disagree with it. I honestly, in fact, if you look at Queen Elizabeth II, that everyone raves about, most of the English rights were lost during her reign.
Yes.
Right. But then I look at it and say her father was killed. He was murdered.
Yes.
That's
and
why
her grandfather.
And her grandfather. They've took out these people. And if you go back through history, even if you looked at Queen Anne, she couldn't have children. Yes. And then when you look at her condition, there's a condition today that we know, I forget what it's called, amyloiditis. They could create that condition in the early 1700s and late 1600s, and they was in effect poisoning her so she could not have children.
That's it.
And then she died.
That's it. And then there's questions about His Royal Highness Prince Albert, and if he was killed as a message to Her Majesty, Queen Victoria.
Graham.
Yeah.
There is a problem, which is people don't know about the Praetorians.
Yes.
Who they are.
Yes.
How can we hold them to account and stop them from doing what they're doing? Because
You can't because they'll disappear in the shadows. What you have to do is you have to go insulate the crown. The
right.
crown
But I
is the
just
high
want to say,
ground.
just to make it clear for people, when we're talking about Praetorians, we're talking about agencies like the MI6,
MI6, MI5.
special
MI5 is the most
special
dangerous one.
MI5.
MI5 is the most dangerous one there because that's the home guard, the house guard. MI6 is mostly externally facing, MI5 is internally, and MI5 actually predates, the predecessor to MI5 far predate MI6. They go all the way back to Walsingham in the late 1500s, early 1600s.
Yeah, MI6 only exists, the British military intelligence externally, MI6 only existed from 1873.
Yeah, so I wrote a piece on this yesterday, Graham. You might like it. I wrote it as a bit of a drunk Scotsman, but a well-educated one. And it goes into the history of MI6. It goes into the history of the SOE. So if you want to, Rich, to your question, more specifically, the threat that we're dealing with is what I call the Devil's Legions. I've written on this extensively. I've called them out directly. And there in the United Kingdom, the Strategic Operations Executive, which was established in 1940, I wrote on this yesterday.
I read that.
Is the threat that you're dealing with. They metastasize, they shut it down. But the SOE, the Strategic Special Operations Executive, the SOE, is the progenitor for the OSS. So the OSS would go on to become the CIA. The SOE would go on to be the reformed MI6, and then later both the CIA and the SOE, so MI6 and CIA, would stand up the BDU, which is the German intelligence. And German intelligence, they put a 2-star major general from the frickin' Waffen SS, I think Waffen SS, but he was the head, he was the lead intel guy in charge of all the operations on the Eastern Front with all those atrocities. And they made him the head, Galen, Major General Galen, and they made him the head of German intelligence when they stood up German intelligence in the earlier mid-1950s. This is who you're dealing with. This is the threat.
Just to let the audience know, what EM just said about the German intelligence, right? I wouldn't lean towards the Nazi side of it, but certainly on the communist side, there's a book you can read by Michael Shrimpton, who just happened to be 180 IQ barrister. They then he wrote a book about exactly what EM is talking about now. He was part of the British establishment. He was the defense of General Pinochet. Was it General Pinochet?
Pinochet.
When Pinochet got arrested in this country, this barrister, Michael Shrimpton, was his barrister, and basically produced a defense where they could not extradite him to Spain because he was being extradited to Spain, right? That barrister, the system then hated him because he went full out, because he should never have been arrested, right? They went full out to go for him. They then planted on his person a thumb drive of paedophilia. They then give him 2 years imprisonment, right? And struck him off as a barrister. Yet that guy wrote a book telling you exactly what EM's just said. And he said the crucial part is when we lost the Second World War, we was infiltrated by German intelligence.
Correct.
That's what happened.
The whole thing was set up from the beginning. So again, this is another thing to be very, very, very. So who are the fascists? Because National Socialists were not fascists. They were National Socialists. Who were the fascists? Mussolini and his boys. Who were they? Italians, Romans.
No, there is a difference.
Right? We are dealing with fascism. What is fascism? Everybody needs to read Mussolini's actual 1932 speech. It's online. You can find it. The original, right? We are dealing with fascist takeover. They are in total and absolute control. Who are they? They are Rome. That is what they are.
I knew it was here somewhere.
Right?
That's the book. It's called Spy Hunter. And he wrote that book. And again, everyone should understand it's a great read. It's very technical, but the guy's got 180 IQ. I've actually interviewed him, right?
Oh, wow.
The Secret History of German Intelligence by Michael Shrimpton. They hate this person, right? And he wrote a book telling you the whole history of how they've done it. It goes right the way through General Pinochet. He talks about the 1970s, the Vietnam era. He talks about all of it going through. He talks about the Titanic and what happened with the Titanic. Every part of it. It is not fiction. He's actually telling you the truth, and he puts in certain bits in that book. I don't know if you want me to read the part of this, but Spy Hunter by the renowned barrister and intelligence specialist Michael Shrimpton. He was one of them people that was allowed. He was one of. There's very few of these, by the way, that are allowed to know what the national intelligence secrets are. So he can be told. So he can defend people. But it's one of the most intriguing books you'll ever read. A fascinating alternative look at the history of espionage from the 11th century, right, up to the present day. An intelligence specialist with deep sources in the Pentagon, the CIA, and elsewhere. Michael was also a consultant for TV series The Spooks. From Chairman Mao's excesses to the methods his successors used to target prominent individuals who shape political, financial opinions in Europe, America, Australasia today, nothing escapes.
This is how they do it. Okay, guys, this is how they do it. Everybody needs to understand it is the Praetorian problem. How they do it is they make sure that the heads of security and key members of everybody's security, this is billionaires here in the United States, and I might or might know this directly from direct personal experience. Right? There isn't a single person in the entire Western world who isn't controlled by their security. And their security comes directly from or has direct connections with the successors to the special operations executive.
Okay. Would that apply also to sovereigntists like Orban, Trump, Putin?
Okay, no. So Putin broke free of this. Russians broke free of this in the 90s and 2000s. Xi's breaking free of it right now. That's been going on for over a decade.
Yep.
Orban broke free of it. Okay. The gentleman in, I think it's Croatia, has broken free, or Slovenia or wherever. So it's happening. Trump has broken free. That's why they just tried to kill him. Right? He's got his own security. He's got his own guys, handpicked. They augment the Secret Service, all of that. He's got his own intelligence capabilities. That's heavily why Silicon Valley guys are also involved, because they do a lot of the intelligence work capabilities, at least all the digital collection and processing, et cetera. The United States is breaking away from it, but that's at the president level. Most all of our billionaires are still screwed. And guys like myself and some others who come from the direct action world, the targeting and direct action world, we've told these people. And they're like, I'm good. I got 6 Navy SEALs. Yeah, but those 2 guys used to work for the CIA. They were contractors for the CIA.
Yeah.
And they might not be bad guys, but where's their loyalty? See, they can replace you as a client. They can't replace the power structure they come from that gives them the jobs, the access, the placement, et cetera. And more importantly, and this is why we've got to go back to lords and people who, or at least princely like people who think like lords, is that you do not have, even if you have good, loyal people, if you do not bring their families in times of trouble, and you leave their families out there where they can be captured, tortured, killed, harmed, etc., that guy's not going to be loyal to you because he's being coerced under duress to rescue his family. We've forgotten all this stuff. We act like, and Rich, you come from a country where this is still the case.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it.
I listen, I get it, and I can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
My family back there would be punished.
Yeah.
They'd get in trouble.
Yeah.
And also, I may not be able to go back.
And I didn't mean to drag you into
No, I get
right?
it. I completely get what you're saying. Graham, Ian,
So to think that, terribly sorry, Rich, but to think that the royal family itself, the most important family in this whole tens of trillions or hundreds of trillions of dollars of system, is not totally, absolutely controlled every minute of the day since 1688. Really, it goes back to Charles II, right? 1660. To think that they are not totally and absolutely controlled in every way, every minute of the day, is just stupid on our part. Stupid. That's the easiest way to control all of us. And the only way to break it is the people march on it, shield it, hold it accountable. It's the only way, short of outright bloodshed.
Can I? Yeah.
We do need to finish up, guys.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll just like to say there is a reason why President Trump took down the North American Free Trade Agreement, because it was part of that system, and it was a replica of the British system, right? Yes. But secondly, there's a reason why President Trump is not allowing the British to know anything about what's going on with the peace deal for Ukraine.
Yeah.
Oh, we just stopped sharing intel with Britain when they put Mahmoud in office.
So
like, that's it. It's war.
People have realised they're knowing who the enemy is, and the enemy is the British oligarchs.
Yes, sir.
The British cabal, the British regime,
the occupiers. Let's just call them what they are. They're occupiers.
Exactly that. That's what we call them. Occupiers. And that's what they are.
Okay. Ian, Graham.
Sir.
I'm never ever going to talk to you again, because I don't think I can keep up. You make my head explode each time. It boggles my mind. And of course I'm going to have you on again. It's an absolute treat and an education talking to you both. Really, really appreciate it. And, you know, really, people watching, we've got to get this word out. I assert, and I've said this to my cousins, that because we argue a lot, or I argue a lot with them, right? That the role of the British, the nefarious, perfidious role that they have played and are still playing, is going to get exposed. More and more people are going to learn about how the City of London and its proxies and agents have been suppressing us and impoverishing us. And what we're going to do is march on the crown and support the crown. I completely get it.
There you go.
Thank you.
We have to break free of Rome again.
I'll have the links in the description below for where people can find you, and also look forward to doing this again in about a month's time. And Ian, you and I are on in half an hour with Tom and Alex Craner. I look forward to that. Graham, all the best. Ian, all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.